So I talked about osteopathy, the assumption that movement of the bones will solve all 10 systems of the body is not one that's offensive to me. I've talked about the exercises in using those models that for musculoskeletal purposes. In previous videos or other messages, I don't always say the name. I'm going to say ELDOA now. I think it's, I've known about it for years. Most of my education in ELDOA is off-label. I just learned it from colleagues in Canada. The thing it's a little bit mysterious to people because some of these things, they look like other things. I think when people ask about neural tension when they see this, I think that's very fair and it's a good question, and it's one that probably should clear the neural tension before you do the ELDOA. Which is actually a normal thing. I think when you learn about ELDOA, you don't always just do it. You kind of use it as part of this path where if something is affecting where you want to go, you got to hit that first. It's almost like the progression of certain things acts as an evaluation of sorts. But one thing that I have asked, and no one has ever had the answer, which I hope maybe someone does, is not that does ELDOA work, because it clearly does. And it's not that the spinal positions do not create what we think. I've had high level, again, people that are not instructors, because you're not going to find too many very good instructors of this model. These are people that were students long time ago. He would say that, okay, if you put your finger where the decoaptation is supposed to be and you wiggle your hand, you'll feel something in your hand. And it's actually, obviously there's some conformational bias with something like that, but it's really very interesting. What I have never been able to ascertain, if anybody does know, I think that'd be some great discussion. When you look at the stuff that just doesn't make sense right off the bat, if you saw ELDOA for the hip in external rotation, it makes perfect sense. If you saw the myofascial stretching for most muscles, it makes perfect sense. It's kinesiology, it's arthrokinematics. But when you see ELDOA for T10 T11, there's no way you would just be like, that's T10 T11. I think, let's say for some of the cervical, you would say, yeah, I get it, I see how that's cervical, but I don't have any way of determining how the arm position changes the decoaptation from C5 to C6. I believe it does. And you probably could prove it on fluoroscopy if you had a large enough system to do that. I want to know who thought of the first time that we're gonna do this, and obviously I might try more than one, but somewhere in these 10, 5, 38,000 positions, I think one of these is going to be T10, T11. No one's ever explained that to me. I want to know what is the first time, what was the methodology, the thought process, the clinical construct, if not science, that said I should try to do this, and I think I'll create elongation and decoaptation of the osteoarticular joint at that joint, but not another. And why does changing my arm from this position to this position, not that it doesn't change, but why does it then move from one joint to the next joint, which I do believe happens? I think that would be very, very exciting to just be interesting to understand. It does not change my value for the utility of ELDOA in any way. And unfortunately, the last thing I would say, which is not terribly positive, ELDOA is not training. It's very hard to do, and for people that are stiff, you might be able to get some type of low-grade cardiovascular impact, but please don't get so excited about this stuff. Don't be a bad physical therapist by doing these things. Be a coach, be a trainer, and clearly if you have the mobility, I think stabilization strategies using ELDOA, even though they're good for other things like mobility, you probably hear them more in the world of mobility because decoaptation is in effect pulling things apart. If you actually take the course, which I would recommend from only certain instructors, you would then start to see that there's a lot more than just the physical or mechanical decoaptation. Think of if a little hanger that you would, not a hanger, but like these plastic things you put on the wall, and then instead you can hang things off of it. You pull it, and then it comes off. That's maybe a good example of what decoaptation is. So you're not pulling things apart like this. If there is any movement on fluoroscopy, it will be very, very small, but that little bit of movement is incredible value for fluid to come in and out, especially with the primary respiratory mechanism when you're breathing. I talked about a lot of this stuff under scientific and maybe more fun words a few years ago at Perform Better. I don't know if that talk is on the app. But I think if anybody does have the answer to what this is, I'd be really, really excited. How did somebody say that is going to be T8, T9? I know it is, but how did it start? I think that'd be a great question, and we can probably apply that question to anything. And when you know how the engine is built from the first time and all the mistakes that they made from building an engine, you'll probably be a really good mechanic.